from our history. The Mughals represent part of India's great pluralistic culture. How can you just eliminate them and only show them as villains? I'm not saying suggest that Akbar was the greatest leader, but at least tell us about Akbar. Let our young read about Akbar. Let them read about other great leaders of this country, Maharana Pratap, Ahoms. Let them read all the great historical figures. But this attempt to erase selectively to suit a political agenda is where I draw the line, because you are then going the Pakistan way. This is what Pakistan did with history, which is why generations of Pakistanis have grown up hating India. And that, to my mind, is unacceptable. Is that what we want? Young Indians hating anything to do which is even remotely considered Muslim or Islam?
Gaurav, political agenda, that's how the, this selective removal of topics from textbooks is concerned. Do you think that's what this is?
Gaurav is looking at me very angrily. I'm very scared.
I completely agree with Rajdeep Sardesai, and I do that Mughal history should never be erased from India's history textbooks, because this country must know what Akbar was all about. That Babur was an invader in India. Babur was not from this land. Akbar, in the Battle of Chittor in 1568, had 40,000 Hindus killed. He had the Janayu of those people measured to know how many Hindus had been killed in the siege of Chittor. And this is a history book not written by politicians. It's a history, it's a historical account written by James Todd. Let me also tell you what Akbar did at Prayagraj, what he did at Banaras. Again, this is not history that's been written by politicians, but I want to quote, well, Akbar rewarded Badauni, a Mughal historian, with gold coins for his gesture of declaration to soak his beard with infidel Hindu blood. This is what Badauni writes. Let me also get you what Father Montserrat, not a politician, not right, not left in India. Now he was a Jesuit, a Portuguese Jesuit. He writes the religious zeal of the Musalmans had destroyed the idol temples. In places of Hindu temples, countless tombs and shrines of Musalmans had come up. Hold. If you permit me, none of this is by politicians.
There is more to history than just hatred to the Musalman, my friend Gaurav. All you are doing,
I am not saying hatred. I'm sorry, I'm not saying hatred.
All you are doing is that. How is
this hatred? This is a historical fact.
I mean, there is also Din-e-Ilahi. There are various other aspects.
Yes, so please tell. So the Marxist historians will focus on a Din-e-Ilahi, but not tell you how Hindus were killed in Chittor. But this is just point one. Permit me. I'm a student of history, and permit me. So you had a Jahangir. Mughals are part of this country. So Babur may have been an invader. Akbar was born in this land. Jahangir is from this land. Jahangir had the 5th Sikh Guru, Guru Arjan Dev. He compiled the Adi Granth. Jahangir in 1606 had him killed. You know how? Made to sit on a plate of hot plate and killed. And that wasn't the only one.
Many of the atrocities.
Hear me. Permit me one more.
We can't have Mr. Sawant
permit me one more.
Okay,
only let me come up to Aurangzeb.
15 seconds, Gaurav. Then we'll go to the other.
I'll bring up the other points also. By Mughals cannot be the only basis of history. India's history is a civilizational history.
Is it only about also?
It's only about trying to portray good Hindu, bad Muslim. That's all that it is.
Coming to you, I'm just saying.
So Din-e-Ilahi is good Akbar the Great. Let's ignore the fact that he had 40,000 Hindus killed in Chittorgarh.
Let's also frame the debate about whether you expunge Mughal history entirely, or, as Gaurav says, tell the truth about the Mughals, which basically I think he's suggesting you've got a correct history to show the real picture of the Mughals.
Tomorrow about Shivaji? Shivaji has his strength. Shivaji also did things which today, in hindsight, will be looked at.
For example,
the plunder of Bengal.
For example,
when Shivaji's forces would go into Bengal or Surat, and the plunder that took place, these were rulers,
and what
these were rulers, great rulers.
Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj was the founder of the Hinduvi Swaraj, sir. He fought the Mughals. He fought for the freedom of this country.
But we are still talking about the textbooks.
May I get a word in? No, you'll get a word in. All I want to say is, because I come from Maharashtra, let me make it clear. These are great rulers. Shivaji was a remarkable ruler. But if tomorrow you're going to take Shivaji in all his aspects, then we will have to look at the darker aspects of any.
Please look at Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj
let
in
Preeti
his
come in.
entirety, and you will not find a better Hindu ruler in this country.
Preeti
sir.
and then Akshita. Yeah.
All right. So, I believe everybody's been permitted. So, I'm also going to be permitted to say what I have to say. And I want to begin with the sheer fact because, Gaurav belted out all these facts of how the atrocities of the Mughals. Great. The sheer fact he's been able to do so is because it was taught in history books, right? So, they might be invaders. The fact that it was there in history books. What's happening now? Instead of rhetoric, I just want to come down to what's really happened. 7th standard is when Mughal history is introduced to students. That entire 2 chapters have been taken out. So medieval history, for those 200 years when the Mughals were around, the kids in the 7th standard are not really going to learn about the Delhi Sultanate or Mughals. I want to say one thing, and that's it. And I think that would encapsulate what I really want to say here, that we have to look at history dispassionately, Shiv. And, and when you look at it, for example, 20 years from now, from 2014 to 2024, when political history in this country should be and will be encapsulated. It should be encapsulated from the eyes of the BJP, where the abject political dominance of the BJP and the abject decimation of the Congress. It cannot be written from the eyes of the Congress. It would be wrong. It has to be written from the objective of the BJP that the BJP dominated, and it should be known. So to say you have to balance it out, you have to balance history. History is not supposed to be balanced.
History can't be balanced, but this is also about reflecting perhaps the reality. Akshita, what do you think? Because here we're talking about, anywhere between completely erasing chapters and updating chapters to reflect a reality.
No, I think we're all in agreement at least on that, whether it's Gaurav or Rajdeep or anyone
nothing
else.
should be expunged.
Nothing can be expunged.
Yeah.
Quite simply.
I'm glad we're there because a lot of it has been expunged.
No, so that is something we're all against.
Great.
We're
I'm
all
fine
against.
with
But
that.
the question is, what
Teach
type of
everything.
narrative do you want to
Yeah.
put out, right? When Gaurav lists out some of these facts, did we know about it? I think all of us know about Jodha Akbar. Do we know beyond that? There's
of
a
course
question
I
mark
knew
on that.
that.
I'll tell you why. Because basic education also
Who
we
says
talk about
students
that.
of history, of
Let me
higher
explain
history
to
do
you,
not
sir.
know these debates that
These
Gaurav
are
Sawant...
what you
Gaurav
just said.
Sawant is making it out to be as if this has never been taught.
No, I'll tell you
it
why,
has.
sir.
Which class?
No, I'll tell you
Which
why,
class?
sir.
Why should
Which class?
Sixth and
Which
seventh-
class?
Seventh-
Which
Sixth
class?
and seventh standard
Which
students
class
should be
taught
taught
you?
basic
Which
history.
class taught you?
you
Where
use
Akbar
the
called
word.
himself
You
a
use the
Ghazi?
word. You
Where
use the
Akbar
word
called himself a
higher
Ghazi?
history.
Said, let me, the beard should be with Hindu infidel
Sir,
blood.
you use
Which
the
class
word
taught you
higher
that?
history. You use the word higher history. We're talking about school education and setting the narrative right from the beginning.
No,
Why do we
about
not
setting
refer to the
narrative,
Mughal
ma'am.
dynasty?
It's about ensuring that history you
Do
don't
we
black.
not-
I'm not calling for blacking out period, but I'm saying do not also show a history without any positive attributes. And thereby, by the manner in which Mughal history is being
paint it
erased,
as it
you
is.
clearly want to suggest that they had no
No,
contribution.
paint it as it is. We can't
History is a
spread
continuum.
positivity
Okay,
and
leave out
so
Mughal
overshadow
history.
facts.
Okay, leave out Mughal history. I just
No,
want to
look
come
at the
down-
way Gandhi's
No, I want
the
to come
Gandhi
down-
Godse
one
debate.
second, sir.
Let Mr. Gaurav Sawant tell
No,
me.
I want
Let's
to come
come
down
to
to
the Gandhi issue.
One second. I want to forget about the Gandhi issue. I want to come down to
I
contemporary.
wanted to come back
May
on
I just finish?
Aurangzeb.
I'll come to you.
May I just
at one
finish?
point of time.
So,
No, he wants to come back to
may I
Aurangzeb
just
because all he
finish?
wants to do is play bad Muslim, good Hindu. That's all.
I want to come down to
It's
contemporary.
history.
I
That
want
is
to
your
come-
interpretation. I only want facts and
Okay,
public
we'll give
opinion.
everyone
Everyone
a
wants
chance.
facts.
Facts,
Up to you.
facts,
Let me get a
okay,
word.
You want
this is fact.
politics.
I want
One second.
facts.
Let
Okay,
me
this
get
is-
a word.
Politics.
Okay.
I'll
this-
come.
Next
Gaurav,
he,
I'll
will
come back
say,
to you.
next he will say Taj Mahal was
second.
built by someone else.
Okay,
I'll
Then
come
he
back
will
to
say
you, Gaurav.
Fatehpur Sikri
I'll
was
come back to you. I'll come back to you.
May I-
If you can
Let
second
me
guess
down.
me,
Guys,
if you can second guess
I'll
me,
give you a chance to
Rajdeep,
respond. Let me
I'm
because
sorry,
I
I'm
stay,
sorry.
get a word.
I
Let
stay
me get a
on
word.
facts,
Let's-
Rajdeep.
Okay, let me talk
Simply
about
on
facts.
Okay.
Let me talk about simply facts. Now, simple facts in contemporary history, which has been now, where chapters have been taken out. For example, I'll ask all of you, I'll ask our viewers. The sheer fact, forget about the Mughal era, contemporary history from 1947 till now. Every social movement in this country has been deleted. A child in our school right now in CBSE, NCRT syllabus will not know that there was Naxalism in this country, there was the Chipko movement, there was the Narmada Bachao movement, any of those, any social movement. Every chapter has been
Even
taken out.
emergency.
Can I finish, please, sir?
Even emergency.
I'm talking about, let me go one by one. The sheer fact that you've got one chapter in sociology which has been included, which you have to opt for in the 12th standard to actually know that there have been social movements in this country. I find that appalling.
No, and
that
can
do you not think kids need to know about Naxalism, whatever your history is?
No,
Number two, the mention of riots, Gujarat riots, all mentions allegedly have been taken off, while there are other riots which are there. So you've got to be, you balance if
Akshita
you're
and then
talking
Gaurav.
about. That's
Akshita
the
and then
question.
Gaurav.
No, I
Respond.
agree with Preeti on this, that these are issues that we have to come up with. Look, overall, the debate should also be on how our education system needs to be reformed, right? There are these additions, these deletions that we need to talk about. And I think what also stood out for me was your conversation with the NCRT chief when he said, beyond textbooks, let them learn. And that is the biggest problem. They're saying that, if it's not in your textbooks, you think they're only learning from it. I think we have to also be realistic that, yes, they have the internet, but we have to ensure that our textbooks cover these basics, right? Whether it's the Mughals, whether it's the Chipko movement, whether it's the emergency. We talk about all of it, which we're not doing right now. It's deletion now that we're talking about. But before this, were our textbooks perfect? No, it didn't have a lot of stuff.
Gaurav?
So if I come back to the topic which Rajdeep says is Hindu-Muslim, the fact remains, let's talk about
I'm saying
Shah
there's
Jahan.
more to history than being Hindu-Muslim. I think
So,
a good point was made.
okay.
A lot of contemporary history, simply because it doesn't suit whichever is the ruling establishment, is often
So
erased.
in
Why
70
should students
in
not know
75
either
years-
about the emergency
So
of
I don't know if it's the
1975
ruling
or
establishment.
Naxalism?
I don't know about
or
the ruling
contemporary
establishment.
events?
You yourself said the emergency isn't there. The emergency parts also have been removed.
So my point is, all of
Only, by
that
the
should
way,
be
no,
there.
Okay,
So
I'll tell
I
you-
don't think
Let
one
Gaurav
second,
make his point. He
one
wants to make a
second,
point.
I'll
I'm
tell you
saying
what
there
has
is
been,
more,
I will tell you what
there
has
is
been
more
removed
to the
from-
history debate than just Hindu, Muslim
Okay,
or Mughal.
I'll tell you what has
I
been
want to
removed.
understand why,
Akshita,
for example, that
Akshita,
today Gandhi's assassination is sought to be positioned in a way which is completely
I'll
different
tell
to
you
what
what
it
is removed
was.
from the
Why?
emergency.
Because it's embarrassing. That's the
part
reality.
of the emergency that has been removed is the fact that the Jansangh at that point of time did not take part in the movement.
Okay.
That is and what they did at that point of time. That whole chapter has been removed. in that.
Gaurav, finish your point. Yeah.
So, for 75 years, we've studied history with a slant is the allegation from one side. The allegation now is you're studying history from another slant. Let's look at history as facts. Look at what's happening in South Africa, for example. Whatever's happened, there was a truth and reconciliation effort based on which they're moving forward. Once you have truth and reconciliation based on facts, you build the foundation of a very strong nation. That is what is required, not selective erasing. For example, if the Mughals were deliberately targeting Ayodhya, Mathura and Kashi temples, why were they targeting Ayodhya, Mathura and Kashi? Because that's the base of the civilization that we come from in this land. If an effort was being made to remove it, let's rebuild it. Let's rebuild it in a strong way so that our civilizational roots remain strong to build a strong nation. Ayodhya, Mathura and Kashi. Let's study the correct history. We will move forward in a positive way.
Look, if, as Gaurav is saying, that history textbooks over the years have skimmed over atrocities committed by Muslim leaders, maybe it was done at that age in the immediate aftermath of partition, to ensure that communal passions were not ignited. There was obviously also a Nehruvian school of historians who perhaps also were felt that history needed to be taught in a particular way to ensure that the young didn't sort of get into a Hindu-Muslim enmity. I have no problems if over time you want to change that, review that, no problem.
And get facts out.
But
Facts.
do not portray it in a manner where one side becomes only villainous and the other side becomes only heroic, because that is dangerous. Similarly, what is happening on the Gandhi-Godse debate also is fitting into that.
Are you willing to do
over
both?
time,
Are you
over
willing
time,
to
there's
do-
an
are
attempt
you
to
willing to do that with
legitimize
Gandhi
almost
and Godse
Godse.
also?
No,
Are
there
you
is an
willing to
attempt being
portray-
made.
Tweaking
There's
of
an
the
attempt
Mughals.
being made
There's
almost
no
to
tweaking.
legitimize Godse in some form, to try and give a rationalization for what he did. I think all of that is dangerous,
So-
because all of that shows that political
So you can be
poison,
selective
that's
some
not
places,
truth,
you
that's
cannot be
propaganda.
selective in some places.
That's not true. No, all I'm saying is that I think we need to get out of who's the hero, who's the villain. History is complex, complicated. When you're young, you need to give them basic facts. Over time, if they develop interest in it, they can go and explore much more and have more, a more reasoned debate. But let's not get into politicizing history. That's my problem. It's
So for
all
75
about
years,
politics at the
if
moment.
75 years there's been politicization of history, if pendulum has gone on one side, it will go on the other
That's
side.
whataboutry.
It will. I am not doing
That's
what about
whataboutry.
Sir, I'm a student
That-
of
that
history.
It happened then, so
Sir,
why?
No,
why
I am a
that's
student of
exactly
history.
what it is.
I'm a student
Sorry?
of history. I will give you pure facts.
I think
I'm a
Gaurav is
student of
saying
history.
that Gaurav seems to be
No.
saying that it happened for 70 years, 75 years shift. So why,
No,
the
no,
pendulum has swung. So now we are going to do it our way.
I'm not
Why?
saying we.
What rubbish is
I
that?
am sorry. I'm not saying we. I am saying
Oh, I thought
now.
you are writing the book.
I am writing you facts from.
No, you said you're a historian.
I'm not a historian. That is how you misrepresent facts. I said I'm a student of history.
We are all
I did not
students
say
of
I'm a.
history.
We are all students.
We are all students of history.
So Shah
I'm a
Jahan, for
student of
example,
India.
there was a massive famine in Deccan. Yeah, 1630 to 1632, millions died. Shah Jahan, 2 years later, starts building the great Taj Mahal. Okay, Aurangzeb. You said let's not make it Hindu-Muslim. Of course, it should never be Hindu-Muslim. It should be
You're
facts.
only focusing on Mughal rulers.
I am sorry. Well,
That's all you're doing.
That's the debate. On television. I'm
Television
sorry.
wants
Tell them
today's-
how
today's Muslims.
How
No, Gaurav-
Aurangzeb had Guru Tegh Bahadur beheaded in Delhi.
Agree.
Bhai
Gaurav-
Matidas, Bhai
Gaurav-
Satidas,
Gaurav, answer me a
sword
simple
alive,
question.
burnt alive,
Answer me a
boiled in a cauldron.
Answer me a simple question. Should today's Muslims pay the price for what Aurangzeb
Do
did
today's
400
Muslims
years
identify with
ago?
Aurangzeb?
No, they don't.
Good.
I
Then
don't
why
believe
should-
they do.
Why should they be
They
worried?
certainly don't.
Then why should they be worried?
This is not a sociological
Because it goes
debate.
into politics, that's why.
We're talking about the politicization of textbooks. The fact that it has happened for many, many years, this isn't the first time that there has been selective redactions or removals from our textbooks is one argument that is actually being made at this point of time. So is this government involvement in trying to shape history textbooks an inevitable part of the governance process? It's always happened and it's going to happen.
Yeah, but this is what, as I said at the outset, Shiv, is what happened in Pakistan. An entire generation, 2 generations of Pakistanis grew up only on hatred towards India. Today, you will now create 2 generations of Indians who will only grow up on hatred towards the Musliman. Is that what you want to do?
No,
that's
it will not
exactly
be.
what you want to
talking
do.
about
That's
truth
the
and
tragedy.
reconciliation.
You don't want to
Truth
you don't
and
want to tell me a truth.
reconciliation.
It's not about truth and
Guru
reconciliation.
Tegh
It's
Bahadur
about
being beheaded.
propaganda.
Guru Tegh Bahadur being
What
beheaded
I'm
is
saying is the
propaganda.
fact is-
No.
Guru Gobind Singh Ji,
but is
Guru
there-
Gobind
is
Singh
there
Ji,
no-
and the 4 Sahibzades, is that propaganda?
If we want to get into rhetoric, those 10 examples that Gaurav is giving, I'm sure they are true. But there'll be 10 other examples where the Mughals have been inclusive of Akbar. There have been so many examples which have been taken out. So I'm not getting into that.
I'm stating facts. I'm not going into rhetoric.
This is also facts. It is rhetoric beyond a point of
I
time.
am on
There
facts.
There is a point here, Preeti, that basic history, when you look at the Mughals, for example,
True.
you will see your book say Akbar the Great. You won't see any of these points being mentioned. So there is a slant
He
right
was
now.
a remarkable ruler.
Of
As
course,
was Shivaji.
he killed 40,000
As
Hindus.
was Shivaji.
Remarkable.
As was Harshvardhan.
He
As was Chandragupta Maurya.
Maybe talk about the atrocities of all of
Prayagraj,
them.
No, but one
Prayagraj
second.
is
I
a
wanna-
historic Vedic
Because
city.
we keep
Prayagraj
talking-
converted to Allahabad. Oh, what a remarkable
No, so
ruler.
why can't
Because
they
we
be
are 100%
to
transparent.
I
To
am
answer
so
you.
sorry,
Now, you
Rajdeep.
said-
Akbar was not great.
Okay. Okay. So what you said that we've only known of Akbar the Great, actually no. You've known there was a chapter called Akbar the Great in your 6th standard. In your 7th standard, when we moved in, you had an entire chapter on Mughal expansion, which talks about the atrocities of Akbar. It does talk about that.
Like
I'm
what?
not. I'm sure quite a few of the ones which
I
Gaurav has.
I can speak from example, and I'm not a student of history beyond school, and I can tell you that my experience as far as studying Mughal history in school was almost overwhelmingly positive.
Exactly.
It was wow.
It was overwhelmingly positive.
It was
Didn't
always
know-
wow.
I'm not saying that's right and wrong. As we wind down this debate, Rajdeep, the question I'd like to ask is it wrong for those who are sensitive about history having been one-sided for so long? Are they completely wrong, or can you just dump it and say, listen, you can't allow propaganda to come into our text?
All I'm saying is have a dialogue. You see, the problem is we are caught in our echo chambers and unwilling to have a dialogue with each other, and therefore we have those who will look for the worst, for example in the Mughals, and those who will want to focus on just the greatness of them. I'm saying history is complex. I was just this morning listening to a podcast of William Dalrymple on Bahadur Shah Zafar,
Yeah.
and I learned of he was a remarkable genius in many ways in what he did for culture and his role in 1857. Now, the fact is that we need, this city in which we live, Delhi, the huge contribution that the
Where are
Mughals
the
have
big
made.
temples
Are you going
of
to
the city?
eliminate them?
Where are the big temples of Delhi?
Look,
Where
learned-
the
we
Birla
did-
Mandir
Did we not learn that the
built post-
Mughals? Did we not learn?
You
in
know,
school
where
that
are the
Mughals,
big temples?
That the Mughals desecrated
there are
the
four,
temples in the country we
Rajdeep,
did.
I'm sure you know, Sanatan Dharma, which is Hinduism, Jainism, Buddhism and Sikhism, 4 religions that came from this land. and there are no big temples in Delhi.
The only negative connotation that we've learned in our textbooks about the Mughals is the word invaders, and I think it
No,
stops
the fact
there.
that they destroyed the temples, it's talked about in detail how each of these temples was destroyed by
Are we going to look at Hinduism's destruction of Buddhist
I also want to
I'm
learn.
not saying it's one side.
I
We're
also want
speaking
to
about the
learn
Mughals, so we're talking about it. But the
Angkor
reality
Wat
is-
temples. I want to learn how our
No,
culture
but whatever
spread
said and done-
across so many lands.
You know, the fact
Rajdeep,
is-
have you ever
No, it seems that you only want history textbooks to be about Hindu culture.
No,
I want
have
it to
you
be
heard-
about
You're
Indian
talking about one
civilization.
Have you heard of
I
King
want it to be about Indian
Lalitaditya? Have you
civilization.
heard of King Lalitaditya
You know,
Muktipada?
the fact is
You know,
if we
he
keep
spread
getting
the
into-
expanse of this empire.
If we keep
We
getting
don't
into
read about
trying
him in our
and
history.
settling
We can go-
scores,
we-
we can
yeah.
go on and
We
on,
can
settle
go on.
scores.
We're out of
Collateral
time.
is going to be the student.
There's a reason why this is called the Democratic Newsroom, because we all have our say. It is a contentious issue. It's an emotive. It's a sensitive issue. It dates back to a subject and a time where all of us feel very sensitive, and it's something that we've all been through because we've all studied history in school. We all know about the Mughals. So this is something that hits a certain place.
As long as you don't poison the minds of our young.
In political season,
As long as we speak the truth to the
Expect-
next generation, so that there's truth and reconciliation.
on the
That's not
Democratic
happening
Newsroom,
now.
okay,
It's not going to
guys,
happen as per
I'm
the
going to have to
SRT.
crack the whip
It
now.
will.
True. I agree with
I
that,
have to,
Shiv.
I have to
Ultimately,
crack
truth
the
will prevail.
They've altered it. They've removed. They
Okay,
haven't done
we
what
will
you
we
want
will
them
do
to
a part two on the
We should
Mughals,
get them
maybe
to do
and the
that.
textbooks, and given how 2023 is going so far, I think I have a feeling we're going to do the Mughals many more times here on the Democratic Newsroom. Thanks so much for watching, and thanks to all of you.
Hello, my name is Pranav Dikshit and you are watching Tech Today. Realme has been making waves in the Indian smartphone industry for its innovative features and affordable price point. Today, Realme has launched the C55 smartphone. Now, specs aside, one of the most interesting features that I found in this smartphone is the mini capsule, which smartly takes around the area of the punch hole camera. From the outside, the phone is quite slim at just 7.89 millimeters of thickness. The back of the phone has a nice design to it with these brushed vertical lines. The chassis looks quite modern with flat edges and rounded corners. The phone has a big 6.7-inch display, a 64 megapixel primary camera and a 2 megapixel black and white lens. Now coming to the inside, the Realme C55 is powered by a MediaTek Helio G88 chipset with up to 8 gigs of RAM, which can provide ample performance. Coming to its showstopper feature, which I have not seen in any Android smartphone in the market today, is the mini capsule. It can smartly adapt part of the display around the 8 megapixel punch hole camera for showing things like charging notification, data usage and more. Apple's Dynamic Island, anyone? Now while the phone supports only 4G networking with 2 nano SIM card slots, it has something that many of the phones 10 times its cost do not have, which is a micro SD card slot. You can expand the storage by up to 1 terabyte. The phone has a 5000 mAh battery with 33 watt fast charging that can charge your phone from 0 to 50% in just 29 minutes. The Realme C55 comes in two colors, Sun Shower and Rainy Night. Overall, the Realme C55 offers impressive features at a great price point of Rs 13,999, making it a great option for anyone who is in the market for an affordable smartphone that doesn't break the bank.
Operation PFI quakes Karnataka. India Today investigation sets the agenda. Revealed that PFI subverting ban in Karnataka. Bombay government promises action. The biggest news break ahead of polls. Investigation that India cannot ignore.
But beyond the left and right narrative, where does the truth lie?
There were certain blatant errors which have to be removed, and I still believe it is too less.
So this whole thing that this was some kind of leftist conspiracy enterprise is factually completely
So there was
wrong.
no whitewashing. There was no whitewashing, you're saying.
Not at all.
It should have been relooked right from 1950s. RSS name should not have been dragged at all.
The time has come when education and primary education has to be liberated from political dominance, influence and interference.
Most important would be to go and consult a dermatologist because this is not something you can treat on your own. However, what is the basic step and why does it happen? So heat rash happens because of the trapping of the sweat gland or sweat duct, and there is sweat under the skin. So you see it can be of varied types, it can be red color or it can be crystal-like or it can be pustular. So these are the various types of heat rash which can be seen depending upon the level of the sweat duct which is involved. So most important steps which we can do during summers is to wear loose clothing. Don't wear very tight clothing because that can cause friction as well as it can lead to mechanical damage because of rubbing, and so the skin barrier could be disrupted. So make sure that your barrier is intact, and you can use moisturizer which will act like a lubricating agent, so it will protect your skin.
Tell us about heat burns and how to avoid them.
You have to use something to negate the effects of your direct exposure to sun, like hat you can use goggles so that eye irritation will not happen. You can cover your arms and your body parts with a soft cotton clothes so that you will not get sunburns.
Why do I keep getting headaches in summers? Is it a sign of dehydration?
One of the symptoms of dehydration is lightheadedness and mild headache. Of course, be very clear in your head that this is not the basic sign of dehydration. So there are a lot of headaches which happen in summers, especially those who are prone to migraine. Summers and extreme heat precipitates the headache, and therefore dehydration of course can give you lightheadedness and some headache, but other causes of headache must also be considered.
But beyond the